with this circle, okay? The circle are the 4 that you need to know in terms of your remainder, okay? So if there's nothing left over, you would 0 remainder, 1, 2, or 3, and these are the corresponding values, okay? So anytime I say, here's an example, if you have I to the 5th, 5 divided by 4, 4 goes into 5 once, so therefore there's 1 left over. So I to the 5th is the same or equivalent to I to the 1st, which is I, okay? So if we look at I to the 10th, 4 goes into 10 how many times? Twice. How many are left over? 2. So I to the 10th is equivalent to I squared. I squared and I to the 10th mean the same thing, which then equals -1. Okay? So if we look at I to the 6th, actually, let's look at I to the 7th. 4 goes into 7 how many times? Once. How many are left over? 3. So I to the 7th is equivalent to I cubed, which is what according to the circle? -I. Okay? So whatever is left over, your remainder, and it's always dividing by 4. Nothing changes. Okay? How about 4 goes into 9? How many times? Twice. How many are left over? Once. So I to the 9th is equivalent to I to the 1st, which is I. Okay? So it's always going to be one of those 4. Always one of those 4. So why don't you guys try these right here. I to the 16th, 52nd, 63rd, and 101. 1, good. I to the 63rd, Sam? -I, good. 101. Go ahead, Josh. I, good. Okay, excellent. Okay, so when you see something like this, you're looking to see what it's equivalent to, and it's going to be any one of those 4. Okay, so the whole idea here is if you turn to the next page, okay, turn to the next page, all right, where it says if you had to simplify the square root of -18, first and foremost, what you would want to do, you see a negative, automatically, I had -1, square root of -18. Square root of -1 automatically is what? I. See a negative? Take an I out. Now we could simplify the square root of 18. How? How can we simplify the square root of 18? Sam? The negative we took out here, okay? So now we're left with positive. Go ahead. What is it? 3 root 2. So what we would have is 3I root 2. So you see a negative, automatically an I comes out. And then you're able to simplify your radicals, what we are used to. Okay? Looking at A, square root of -3. What do I take out first? Rory. An I. And therefore, we are left with 3. Can I do anything with that? No. This would be your final answer. Okay? Try B. Okay. Square root of -32. Who's got that answer? Campbell. 4I root 2. How many of you had that? Any questions regarding square root of -32? Go ahead, Liz. Sure. Okay, see a negative, automatically I comes out, right? So you're left with the square root of 32, which now you can simplify, okay? So that's the big component. Once you get rid of that I, it's what we've been used to, okay? All right. Now if you look at C, we have I on the outside already, okay? But what else do we take out? We have the square root of 49, sorry. John? Take out another I. Then we're left with positive 49. So, I times I is what? Ooh, good. Square root of 49. 7. Okay? What does I squared equal? Negative 1. 7 times negative 1? Okay? So, write that in there. You should not have anywhere in your final answer I squared. You can have an I in your final answer. Should not have a negative inside your square root. Okay? Now if we look at D, we have negative I already on the outside. Square root of negative 121. See a negative, automatically what comes out? I. Then you're left with 121. Negative I times I, negative I squared. What is 121? 11. What does I squared equal? Yellow. Nope, it's already on the outside. So we end up with positive 11. Okay. So, and I'm glad that question came up. If the I is already on the outside, it stays as is, whatever is given to you, either positive or negative. Only thing you take out, the negative inside. All right. Now, when we went through multiplying radicals, we would just multiply the outer and the inner, right? You can't do that in this case. You have to simplify them first. You have to get rid of that I first. So, if I have 2, how do I simplify square root of negative 12? What would that simplify to? Andrew? What do I also have to include there? Good. So we have 2I root 3 for that first one, which I could multiply now. 4I root 3. Okay. How do I simplify negative 3 root negative 8? So I also have the negative 3. How do I simplify square root of negative 8? Laura? Good. Okay, so I'm just going to rewrite it. 2I root 2. Okay. All right. So now if I multiply negative 6I root 2. Now I'm ready to multiply together. What is 4I times negative 6I? Good. Negative 24I squared. Then root 3 times root 2. Root 6. But am I done? No, what do you have to do? Good. I squared equals negative 1. 24 root 6 is your final answer. Okay. Did I lose anyone there? No? You guys are okay? All right. So the key, and you're going to try one right now on your own, but the key is simplify inside first. Get rid of those negatives inside the radical. Go ahead. Try the next one. Okay. So, how many of you got to point? Can you keep going? Okay, how? Sam? Perfect. Good. How many of you did end up with negative 144 root 15? Okay. Any questions about this one? Okay. We got to first simplify with a negative. So you have negative 3, and then negative root 54 is 3i root 6. Then you have negative 4 root negative 40 is 2i root 10. Then you multiply negative 9i times negative 8i is 72i squared. 6 times 10 is 60. Then I squared equals negative 1, so you have negative 72 root 60. But that could be broken up to 4 and 15. So now, pull out the 2. Negative 72 times 2 is negative 144, and you're left with root 15. Okay? I want you to try some practice right now. Okay? If you could try, we're going to circle. Number 1, 3, 5, 8, 9, 11. So circle as I go. 1, 3, 5, 8, 9, and 11. 14 and 16, and just this side over here, 19 through 23. Okay, I want you to try those. We will go over those specific problems, okay, in a few minutes. When we went through simplifying, okay, the only thing that really changed is if you see a negative, take a negative out, right? And then I squared equals negative 1. Okay, so those are two key components that we added to what we already know of simplifying radicals. Okay, so now we get into operations. However, operations are very simply, for adding and subtracting, you're just combining like terms. Your final answer, however, needs to be in standard form. Okay, it's your real number plus your imaginary. Okay, or your real number minus your imaginary. Okay, that's what standard form is, and that's how it has to be. So, when we are adding, and I can't stress this enough, that they do put parentheses around adding and subtracting, okay, because they are binomials, and they're together. But I don't want you to get confused with seeing both sets of parentheses that you should multiply. Make sure you keep an eye of what's in the middle, okay? So if we look at 1a, all we're doing here is combining like terms, so we're adding. So we have 4i plus negative 6 plus I. All I did was drop the parentheses since we are adding. Now we're combining like terms. So I have negative 6, 4i plus I is just 5i. It's the same thing. I acts like a variable in this case. Okay? For adding and subtracting, you are just combining like terms. Okay? But in B, we are now subtracting. What do we have to do? Rory? Good. So we want to distribute the negative sign, right? So 7 minus 6i minus 3 plus 6i. So we distribute, make sure it's to both. And now we combine like terms. So 7 minus 3 is 4. Then negative 6i plus 6i, what do you end up getting? 0. So you could write it two ways. 4 plus 0i, or just simply 4. Either one's acceptable. Okay? I want you guys to try C, D, E, and F. Go ahead. Okay. For C, what do we end up with? Let's see. Mustafa? Good. 4 minus 3i. How many of you guys got that? Awesome. How about D? Rory? Good. 13 plus 5i. Awesome. How about E? Go ahead, Phoebe. Good. 5 plus 5i. Awesome. And F. Go ahead, Sam. Good. 23 plus 12i. Awesome, you guys. Okay. So adding and subtracting, all you're doing is combining like terms. Okay. The last thing we're going to do, because it's on the easier side, is multiplying. Okay. Is multiplying. Will be the last thing we're going to cover today. All right. So for number 2A, what would I have to do in this situation? Yeah, Laura. Huh? Distribute. So 4i times negative 6 is negative 24i. 4i plus times I is 4i squared. What's wrong with this picture? John? Good. So I squared equals negative 1. Okay? So when you're multiplying, remember, I squared equals negative 1. You should not have I squared anywhere in your final answer. So in the end, remember, this is not in standard form. So I have to rewrite it. Negative 4 minus 24i. All I'm doing is reordering. Reswitch. Okay? And for B, what would you do in this case? What would you do here? Yeah. You would FOIL. Good. So we are multiplying. Negative 36 plus 63i plus 8i minus 14i squared. Okay. Can I combine any terms right now? Looking at it. What, Andrew? 63 and 8, which gives us 71i. And then I squared equals what? Negative 1 times negative 14. And then last but not least, what's our final answer here? Sam? Good. Okay, you guys. Awesome job. Okay. Negative 22 plus 7i. Yeah. Yes. Because that's standard form. So your real number goes in front. Okay. All right, you guys. So your homework, and I'll answer your questions in 1 second. Your homework, oops, 71. Thank you. Okay. Your homework is Delta Math. Okay. Your homework is